And we're joined now by former Congressman John Yarmuth, the Democrat from Louisville. John, thank you so much for taking the time.
Good to be here.
So a lot's happening in the world and in the country. We're fresh off primary night a week ago. We got so many results from some of our congressional races, U.S. Senate primaries. Was it really the Massie-Gowrine race that caught your attention the most? It seemed, at least across the country, that Tuesday night, that was the one to watch.
Well, I don't think there's any question that was the most interesting one and probably the most at stake on that day. I was very interested in the Senate primary, primarily because I had endorsed Charles Booker, and I wanted to make sure he won.
And he won pretty handily.
He won handily. But, the Massie race, because of the pattern that is apparently emerging, where if Trump goes after an incumbent, he's successful in defeating him. Now, what we don't know in some of these races is whether, like the Paxton Cornyn race in Texas, is whether he's picked somebody who he knows is already going to win. Because the polls have been pretty clear that Paxton was running ahead of Cornyn consistently. But with Massie, you didn't quite know. The polls the last few weeks after Trump endorsed Gowrine, and after
they were kind of all over the place.
All over. That's right. Yes, there were polls that had Massie still ahead, but then over the last couple of weeks, I think partially because of the huge amounts of money that came in to that race, the polls seemed to move in one direction. It looked like Gowrine had the momentum. So it was. It's a fascinating race. There's still a lot of, I think, post-mortems to be done. The numbers were actually very interesting, the turnout numbers. And I think that's the question of turnout's going to be a huge factor, of course, all over the country this year.
You know, it's interesting you bring up turnout because Thomas Massie, I don't know if you were able to watch his interview on Meet the Press. He got extended time. It was like a 13, 14-minute interview with us in the TV industry. That's a lot of time. And there was a moment where this was probably the most controversial thing, maybe you could argue he said. He was sort of asked about the turnout and, those who were calling in Massie's districts of constituents, voters who I talked to. They actually referenced one of our quotes, who someone called him a rhino, Republican in name only, because some of his high-profile votes against the party. And Massie sort of alluded to the fact that he said with some of the ads that they almost tricked, they being the Gowrine team and those in that orbit. His words were that they tricked voters, particularly older voters, he said, of a boomer age, so 60, 65 and older, to believe some of the ads, like the one with Ilhan Omar and AOC. And he said the young voters, young Republicans didn't fall for that, but they tricked the older ones, and that won't last forever. I mean, that's a touchy subject. I'm not sure he's saying that.
Well, since I'm in that age group, it's very touchy.
Yeah, I mean,
no, I think he's absolutely right. I think that one of the analyses after was that Massie carried every age group except over 55. So when you're talking about generational shifts, plus the only people who are watching live TV generally right now are older voters
outside of sports.
So you can see that. I mean, the fact that over $35 million was spent in a Republican primary in a relatively rural district is absolutely mind-boggling. And of course, the 4th district is the worst possible district probably in the country to run in, because you have to buy Louisville, Cincinnati, Huntington, West Virginia, and Charleston, all of which are basically 70, 80% wasted because those audiences can't vote for you. So it's a bizarre district.
It's one where you see lower turnout to begin with. That's what the Secretary of State was telling me.
Exactly. Yeah. The one thing that I think is possible is that you might get Republican voters. First of all, you have the Trump voters who are not really Republican voters. They're just Trump voters, and he's not going to be on the ballot. So that's one possibility that would affect turnout. And the other one is people assuming the races are over, that there's no way that Gowrine can lose. There's no way Andy Barr can lose.
In Kentucky, it's almost like the primary sort of become the general.
And which is historically, that was the opposite. It was that way for Democrats for years, which is why there historically have been so many registered Democrats who didn't vote Democratic. But anyway, it's going to be an interesting fall campaign in so many different ways, and obviously across the country.
Yeah. You had actually, I think you were in attendance, one of our reporters told us, when Thomas Massie was at U of L and sort of giving a talk to.
Yeah, I went to listen to him.
You were there, and I think he shouted you out, or he sort of said there was mutual respect there. Tell me about that moment and sort of y'all's relationship, because he was one of what? You said 15 Congress people that you had met with on Capitol Hill, Democrats and Republicans who you had seen just a few weeks ago.
Right. Well, Thomas and I have always gotten along really well. And like most liberals and libertarians, we go around the world and meet on the other side on certain issues. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times when we'd have a vote, it would be 4-2 in the Kentucky delegation. Thomas and I would vote the same way, and the other 4 would vote the other way. And largely, they were either foreign policy votes or issues like privacy and so forth and individual liberties. So, we've always gotten along and had very enjoyable a very enjoyable association. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, I told him this story because I had never told it to him before, but when he was elected the first time, he shows up on January 3rd for the day we all got sworn in, and I was not in my office, I was out somewhere. And he came by the office to say hello, just to introduce himself and say hello. And anyway, I get back to my office sometime later that day, and my chief of staff said, "I am so mad." And I said, "What are you mad about?" She said, "Well, Thomas Massie came by the office to say hello, and I talked to him for an hour, and I wanted to hate him so much, but I really liked him."
Yeah.
And he's a very engaging guy, and he's fun to talk to. He's very self-effacing. I mean, I don't know if some people don't know this, but of course he votes against most environmental legislation,
Sure.
And yet he lives off the grid in Lewis County. He
generates his own power.
Generates his own power. He drives a Tesla. This is one of the great ironies. He drives a Tesla, and he has a Friends of Coal license plate from Kentucky.
On the Tesla.
Yeah.
I don't think I realized that. That's
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because on a state level, I mean, I covered this last legislative session. I've covered a few now in a row in Frankfurt. And it's common you see sort of the libertarian-leaning candidates, some votes, they vote with Democrats, quote unquote, right? But on a state level, it just doesn't get that publicity.
Right.
And with Thomas, it was almost like where it was like there were occasions where he was one of 2 or one of 1, and that does garner a lot of attention. I mean, for you, you're someone who, I mean, used to be a part of the Republican Party and, you know, now a Democrat, have been for years. I mean, what do you make of sort of this party loyalty argument that we're seeing, quite frankly, on both sides of the aisle? Because we know with John Fetterman, that frustrates a lot of, you know, kind of loyal, hardcore Democrats. What do you make of this whole, you got to be loyal, especially in this environment?
I have been talking about this for several years now, that something's happened in the country that I don't really understand, but it's pretty clear that it's happening, and that is people's political partisan identity has become a very important part of their individual identity. When I was growing up, if you would say, how you identify politically, where would that stand in the way you think of yourself? And I'd say, oh, I don't know, down around 15th or 20th. You know, where'd you get my high school, so forth, whether I'm a Louisville or Kentucky fan, all of those things.
Take precedent.
Yeah, but party affiliation would have been way down the list. Now it's way at the top of the list for most people. And I can't tell you the number of people who've come up to me over the last few years and said, I'm a Republican, but, and they'd actually pay me a compliment. But it was always that first thought, I'm a Republican, but. And that's a very new phenomenon in this country. And I think it's extremely damaging, primarily because the parties, particularly the Republican Party, one of the complaints about Democrats is they don't know what they stand for. They don't have a brand and so forth. I'll accept that. With the Republican Party, they're anything but conservative today. Not the way we thought of conservatives, not the William Buckley, Barry Goldwater.
Fiscal conservatism, deficit hawk, yeah.
Yeah, and so, again, I can't explain it. I don't think it's healthy, but it's something that's real. And you've seen that also in in the reduction of the people who actually split tickets. It's almost non-existent today. I mean, it's it's in the single digits, 4 or 5% of people actually split their tickets, and again, it's a fact of life. Now, whether that's going to continue as Trump's popularity declines is a question we're going to have to see. I have no idea.
Sure. I mean, because the general election is going to be sort of a whole different ball game, right? We know how Trump's endorsement does in primaries, which it's extremely effective. Some might argue, okay, well, he picks opponents that he sees are polling better, but I mean, you can't go 2 for 3, 3 for 3, 4 for 4, 5 for 5 in just the last few weeks and say it's a coincidence. I mean, clearly there's some trend there. I do want to touch on Massie's future a little bit. You know, you've had conversations with him, and you might get a sense for how he thinks. I mean, it seems like at U of L, he was willing to just say, if I lose, I'm done. Maybe at the time, maybe he felt like losing was like it's not going to happen. And then all of a sudden his answer has sort of changed. Now he's hearing 2028 chants at his concession speech, although it sounded more like a rally for the future. What would be your guess? What do
At
you
U of L, he also said if he won, he would consider running for governor.
governor, yeah, which the deadline's not there yet for that.
The deadline's not there, so that's also a possibility. And with his newly found notoriety and popularity, one might say, that he certainly becomes viable automatically, I think.
In a governor's race.
In a governor's race. And so who knows what he's going to do. I definitely don't think he's finished. Clearly, he's just filed his papers to declare his federal fundraising, basically, eligibility. So he's going to continue to raise money. We know that. Yeah, he could be raising that, theoretically, to give to candidates across the country. He could do that.
We can't make too much of that, right? It's just almost a smart political move to make.
Exactly.
While the
very smart, very smart political move.
Because, I mean, if you could explain to viewers for a second, because so many people see that, they're like, oh, that means he's running for president or he's running. It doesn't necessarily, as someone who was a former congressman, like you sort of have to always keep that ball rolling.
That's right. You need to make sure the Federal Election Commission knows that you're a possible candidate for something. Yeah. And then that enables you to raise money. Now, it would not enable him to raise money for a governor's race. So that's the other thing.
Right, because that's a statewide
You'd have
election.
to raise it to run for Senate, House, President, or, again, he could give it to other federal candidates.
A federal office of some sort where it transfers like Andy Barr did for his Senate campaign. Real quick on the 2028 of it all, Senator Rand Paul, who openly endorsed Thomas Massie, was campaigning with Thomas Massie in his Massie's reelection bid. They were all over the place. They were in Shelby County, Oldham County, even further into the district. Rand Paul really attached himself to Thomas Massie in a way where he said you can vote for Massie and you can vote for Trump. It's very clear. And I did talk to voters who believe that, but I talked to a lot of voters who didn't feel as strongly. Should Senator Rand Paul be nervous? Now, I know there's plenty of rumors that he'll run for president in 2028, but say he doesn't. I mean, should he be nervous about his Senate seat in 28, or is it too soon to tell, depending on how the Trump administration winds down?
I think it's too soon to tell. I don't think there's any reason to believe he would not run for re-election unless he runs for president. But I can't see Rand retiring. I think he really enjoys his role. He doesn't seem to be threatened at this point. I don't know if Democrats can develop somebody who would have the stature to take him on yet. I mean, that's, who knows? Maybe Morgan McGarvey becomes that person.
You think so? Maybe?
Well, Morgan will face an interesting choice. First of all, I will say, and this is not just because I endorsed him and because I'm really happy with him and because I like him, but Morgan has really become a favored person in Washington right now. The Democrats in the House love him. I mean, virtually everybody I talk to, every Democrat says the same thing. They say, we really miss you, but we love Morgan. And Morgan has a chance to be a committee chair in his third term, which is absolutely extraordinary. It would be small business. But he also might be eligible for a more prestigious committee, depending on what his ultimate goal is in the House. Whether if he's on a leadership track, then probably being a committee chair, even if it's a minor committee, would be the way to go. But he has some options available to him, and again, he is very broadly loved.
Yeah.
So you might. I don't know whether he would be in a position to run for Senate the next time it comes up, but I wouldn't be surprised down the road. But again, when you've got a guaranteed seat and you're on a leadership track, or you can be a real power player in the House, you could be a committee chair, then
You have to weigh those.
then the Senate may not be quite as appealing.
Charles Booker's somebody you've endorsed before. You endorsed him this time. Why do you believe he has a shot? Because there'll be a lot of folks who say, yeah, he can get out of the primary, and this is the Democrats' issue right now, win big in a primary with Louisville, Lexington, and maybe a little of Frankfurt, but then when the general comes around, it's tough to find a roadmap to it. I mean, why
It
do
is
you have
very
faith in
tough
that?
because the main reason. Well, there were two main reasons I endorsed Charles. One is I've known him for a long time. He ran my field operation in two of my campaigns, so
Okay.
he's part of the family, and,
Sure.
and I have a great personal affection for him. But he is the only candidate out there, or he was the only candidate in this primary field who could excite voters. And exciting voters may not get you a win in the general, but it's going to help. It's going to help Zach Dembo in the 6th congressional district. It may help stimulate turnout in some of these metro council races here and state legislative races around the state. So
you think it has down ballot effect?
I think it has
that way?
yeah.
Even if he doesn't win, maybe it helps some other Democrats.
I don't think, with all due respect, and I do respect her military service, Amy McGrath didn't excite anybody. And I mean, I don't know any Democrat that said, oh, I'm really excited that Amy McGrath's running. But Charles does have a loyal following and people who will get out and work for him.
Real quick, before I let you go, the governor's race is already getting some attention. It seems with James Comer, it's a when, not if. Maybe same with Michael Adams. I've heard some murmurs about Russell Coleman, although I do think he likes being attorney general, but who knows. On the Democratic side, Rocky Atkins, same thing, when, not if. Jacqueline Coleman's already in. How do you diagnose what this race ultimately will be, primary and on?
Well, it'll be interesting to see on the Republican side because I don't really know how much political capital somebody like Jamie Comer has, and it may be ultimately a decision that Donald Trump makes, and if he endorses one of those other candidates.
Well, he likes James Comer. It seems like, at least on social media.
Yeah, but who knows? Who knows? Doesn't take much to flip Donald Trump, and so I just don't have a good feel for what would happen in a Republican primary. I know Jamie Comer is considered the front runner, and that's probably legitimate. I would consider him the front runner too.
Because he's familiar with folks, especially those who watch Fox News. I mean,
Yeah.
he's on there a lot with his position over the Oversight Committee. And
That's right.
yeah.
On the Democratic side, I know there's just a poll that's been done,
Yeah.
and Jacqueline Coleman had a significant advantage over Rocky Atkins. I don't think anybody touches her for the nomination.
Really? You think it's not
don't.
close?
I don't think it's close. Full disclosure, I endorsed Jacqueline Coleman, and I think people underestimate her appeal as a candidate. I think she's going to surprise a lot of people about how personally appealing she is, how much people will get to know about her policies, about her values, and she's somebody to me who comes off as sort of like a Gretchen Whitmer, but not quite as many hard edges as Gretchen Whitmer has, and so I think she has great leadership potential, and she certainly gets around the state. I know that people really gravitate toward her when they're around her. So we'll see. I mean, who knows whether she can raise the money that probably be necessary. But you could say that of anybody right now.
Before we go, any Andy Bashir news, Governor Andy Bashir news you'd like to make, or any speculations, conversations you might have had with him?
I have not had any conversations about him with him recently. I've had a lot of conversations about him, and I will tell you that I don't think there's any question he's running for president.
Sure. We're like yeah.
But I've talked to many members of Congress who have been around him, have been at events with him, and every one of them says they were blown away by him. Every one of them. They bring him up with me, say, "Hey, we really love your governor. He's got a real shot," and that's coming from the entire spectrum of national Democrats. I was watching something on television just yesterday. Who was it? It was a national commentator. I forget who it was now, but said I've really been impressed with the governor of Kentucky as someone who seems to have the right mix of values and appeal. And he didn't mention any other potential candidate. And I think if you really look at the way I analyze it, and I hate to say this because it hurts me to my core, but Democrats are probably going to nominate a white guy this time. And if you assume that, then your field is Newsom, Shapiro, Pritzker, Buttigieg, and Andy. Andy's the only one who doesn't have any baggage, any evident baggage, or I should say negatives that affect him as a candidate. I mean, Newsom, he's California. He doesn't bring anything else to the ticket because we're going to carry California anyway. Pritzker is a billionaire. Shapiro he's got an Israeli problem because he's with the Democratic primary voter. He's been pretty much supportive of Israeli government policies. And then you've got, and Buttigieg, obviously, with the question of a gay candidate. So that leaves Andy. Now, and I don't think James Tallarico, even if he wins, is going to be quite ready to run for president. But, Andy, coming from a red state in the middle of the country, who's proven he can get Republican votes, and also he can maintain his popularity among Republican voters as the most popular Democratic governor in the country. And now head of the Democratic Governors Association, where he'll be out and about and all around the country and have an opportunity to meet Democratic leaders. I think I wouldn't make him the favorite for the nomination now, but I would say he is definitely one of the top contenders.
All right. John Yarmuth, the former congressman from here in Louisville, Democrat, sharing the time with us and talking about some of the big issues. John, thanks so much for taking the time.
Good to be with you, Isaiah.
And thank you all for having us. Have a great day.